Yeah, so going to Inglewood High School came with sharing the space with those that joined up with crews or was repping different neighborhoods, gangbangers, prepsters, dance crews. Like it was a delicate blend of variety there. You know what I'm saying? But what's interesting is that all those crews, like, again, that's part of our fate and history. So I'm interested in trying to actually like list them, like a roll call of sorts. You know what I'm saying? Just so it'll be documented that these things existed, you know, in the years that we were there. So that's like 89 and like 92. You know what I'm saying? And beyond, I imagine. But so we got like, even writers, graffiti. I don't know if I put that in there. So yeah, so all types of crews. What crews stand out to you? Let's see if we can piece a little bit of this together.
Well, the crews that stood out the most, it was probably, I guess we would say the most dominant, the top four or most popular. I don't know, however you want to phrase it, were Boss Industry, Bones, Chop, and Dorito Bags, as well as B.O.B.
B.O.B. What was that? Brothers of Bass or something? What was that?
It was what was B.O.B.? B.O.B. was it was Brothers of. Damn, I would have to. You got me on that one. Put me on the spot, why don't you?
Right off top, I got this. I got it.
Yeah,
from
but
here.
no, it was something. It was like empowering and lifting of was it Brothers of something or Black of something. It was something something that was uplifting for Black dudes or whatever.
Okay.
Damn, I can't remember the name of it. Man.
It's cool,
It'll come
man.
to me.
It's cool, man. I got it from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm joking. Go ahead. What? So Boss Industries would start off as Boston Industries. I remember It started in the study hall. What they considered the study hall. It was actually like detention. It was bogus. I don't know what the hell that was. But we was in there joking and clowning in Boston. And I remember Slink, Big Slink, Dre.
Dre Bop and Zinc.
Okay, and Zinc, yeah, we was in there clowning and came up with that term, Boston Industries. And then it took off, and cats shortened it to Boss, and it actually got wheels on it. That's interesting. The birth of something can be jokey, and then it turned into a clique or a crew. That's interesting. And is there a difference between a clique and a crew? Are there subtleties that I don't know about, or that's just your preference?
I think Writers was more of a crew, and Boss was more like a clique, because I don't know, it's probably the same thing now, but back in the end, it was a crew. Yeah, it was a crew. Because definitely wasn't a gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were mobsters?
Mobsters was gangs. That was considered a gang, but it was a neutral gang. It wasn't favored towards Bloods or Crips.
I thought they started off as dancers. I always associate the prepsters with dancing.
Prepsters, there you go. Yeah, they were considered prepsters, but by the time it was our generation, it was full blown gangs and shooting and fighting with
sex jerks.
With,
I remember
sex jerks and like the KODs. I think I can't remember exactly.
I can't remember that one. What was that? Yeah. King of Drag? Was that what KO?
Yeah, King of Drag. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Chops was a certain set of people, and then Bone. But then we all were at Inglewood, and we were all pooled together. There was never no internal crew beef in the high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the crew that had the largest amount of people in it were Dorito Bags.
I always thought that was a joke. They used to hang like in the senior square. And they would put the Dorito bags in the oven and shrink them and make the necklaces. That's pretty killer right there.
Yeah, like the Shrinky Dinks, like the old school toys or whatever it was called.
I remember that.
Yeah, so it was. They probably had the most members, girls, male and female. Yeah.
So you mentioned, because I'm trying to get some order about myself here. So you mentioned Boston Industries or Boss Industries. I mentioned mobsters, Dorito bags, B.O.B., and
Chops. That was KHOP.
Yeah, what did that stand for? Killing hoes over pussy? That was some real misogynistic humor there.
that was crazy. And then later on, Mr. Short Chop came from that. Cockhound on Patrol was another definition, and his actual rap name was Mr. Short Chop.
And what did he change the chop to?
Cockhound on Patrol.
Oh, okay, there you have it. Yeah, that's a little better.
Yeah. And then Bone had they had gotten some serious beef. They had some all out gang fights at school. Bones are still around too, but they older and transitioned into music crew, and then as well as motorcycle club.
Bones, you saying?
Yeah, Bones. The Chisholm brothers, two of them are in motorcycle Soul Brothers, I believe it is.
Oh,
I can't remember, but there's like they got a bone patch for their motorcycle club.
And wasn't there some rumor about like that Bones was connected with like Bone Thugs and Harmony? Is that just hearsay?
From what I understand, and I spoke to one of the guys from Bone Thugs and Harmony, is that when the Bones had the fight with the NHPs, kid named Owlsy got sent to Cleveland to live with his grandmother. And when he went to Cleveland, he started Bones in Cleveland. And then I guess Owlsy and one of the guys had ran away for the summer, and they came out here, and one of the guys from Bone Thugs and Harmony got put on, and I guess that's where Bone Thugs and Harmony spun off from. That's the story. But we never got real in depth of the story, but there is confirmation from the Inglewood side and the Cleveland side that Owlsy brought Bone to Cleveland.
That is wild. A straight crew with homeboys at school turned into a multi-platinum all-star group.
Man,
deep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I remember the some of the gangs versus the crews, but what other crews do you remember? Wasn't there some women crews
oh yeah, F.50.
What does that stand for?
That ended up being it was very derogatory, but it was fuck me posse.
Hey.
But then a lot of those girls dated dudes from mobsters, and then it ended up being female mobster posse, like a joke.
Mm.
And then you had 31 Flavors was some other underclassmen a little bit younger than us that had a pretty solid crew. And then that was it for the girls, except for the tagging girls like Queens with Styles. And then also I forgot Money Side Hustlers too.
Money Side Hustlers. I don't know if I remember that at all.
Yeah, no, that was pretty intense. Money Side Hustlers, yep.
No, I remember Hard Time Hustlers. Did that make it there, or that's some other affiliations I'm associated with?
That's a serious gang right
there. That's across the track. I know what that's affiliated with. Yeah, I know the history now. But what was the ones that wore green? Somebody wore green. Hard Time?
That was the Money Side Hustlers.
The Money Side dude. Okay.
Yeah, Money Side Hustlers. Yeah.
Because I know.
I can remember when we were back at Crozier, and you had Big Time Hustlers. Big Time
was another one. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, you had Big Time Hustlers. You had Legend Crew. You had Avenue. You had Avenue Players, and I think it was one more. But basically, the gangs kind of came down on them y'all got to make a decision on what you're going to be. And if I remember right, Legends went with Legend Crips, BTH went with CPF, the No Park Family, and the Avenue Players became Avenue Pirates. Something like that, how it went or whatever. I remember that day that the big homies was coming to school to put people on that were in these crews. Either they got with them or got rolled with them or got rolled on, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. That was middle school, though.
Middle school. This is shit we had to deal with in middle school. What about just learning? That's hilarious. Mm-hmm. So, graffiti crews, or what other crews do you remember? I don't mean to jump around, but my knowledge is scattered. So, my graffiti crew.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You probably got the graffiti crews on me. Like at Inglewood, I remember like NBT.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
NCS.
you got what do they mean? Like, I'm trying to get this.
Oh yeah, NBT was nothing but trouble.
Yeah, that was the official, and then it turned into Trouble Gang as it evolved.
You see how that gang got on there?
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything went gang.
That's deep. KWS.
NTS, Kings with Style, right?
Yeah.
And then NTS was Next to Serve.
I thought that was a killer name.
Yeah.
Because there used to be I think a Last to Serve. That was the older crew, like early 80s. I thought that was dope.
Yeah, and that was the Next Generation, how they flipped the name. I remember that now.
TDK, those damn
TDK.
kids, that was dope.
Yeah, that was sick too. Yeah. There was no West Coast artists at our school, I don't believe.
Nah. And then KCC, I don't think, was that King's Cold Chill? I don't know what that KCC stood for, but those was like kind of the same at some point, it felt as well.
Yeah, some of them were together.
Yeah, and then CMA, because all that Xerox was repping a few of those at the same time.
Yeah, he had three. I think he had three of them. I think he had MBT, what was it, CNS cutting no slack?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It was so many dudes.
Now that was killer. That was a hella creative joint. Like those names, man. That was something special. What about dance crews?
I just remember like the names of the people like in the dance crews, because like originally like a lot of those pressure things were dance crews and they turned into gangs. Mm-hmm. I just remember the crew of people. I can't remember like a particular name. That's one thing that I had been thinking about, because I know there was like Shorty and Tyrone and Alvin and some other people that was into the house.
Shorty had skills,
Yeah, super skills, and they had the longer braided belts and the baggy clothes.
Yeah, the little locks at the top of the head. That was a beautiful era.
No, it was super fly, and
the Hirachis. That was like the shoe of choice back then.
Yeah. Although the Wallabies was killer too, though. The boots with the little gum bottom. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, man, that really set the standard for fashion today as well, because Nautica, Polo, all that stuff, all the kids are buying all the stuff that like we wore. That's what they want now for gear. And there's actually a store that's benefiting off of it called Round 2, where it's supposed to be authentic stuff from the 90s that they're reselling, like a free Nautica jacket you got when you bought cologne. Like, remember the gift sets in the mall? Now they're selling those jackets for like $200.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's a trip, man.
Yeah, courtesy to Fabulous. I heard that he got a hella collection of clothing. I don't follow his career, but I've heard good things about him keeping that retro look alive.
Yeah, all day long. The retro clothes, the jerseys, everything. Yeah, he was the king of that, definitely. Yeah, I'm really trying to think of more like and then also Inglewood had like the blood bench. They had the basketball area, the IVB, Inglewood Varsity Basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had the football section. Then the Latin people had their section with like the I-13 and the Rascals and just what we would call the student Latinos. It was a trip, man, how everything was divided but together.
Mm-hmm. Well, not too much together. Obviously, if like riots broke out at some point.
Yeah, that was what was that, like our 10th grade year, the first riot had happened? The 10th, we were in 10th grade.
Something was amiss. Like, something was definitely not happening. So, so you had the Tiny Locos. I remember that was one of the I-13, like, spinoffs, like,
the Rascals were the younger ones that I remember. And then, that was the younger guys right there. Oh, you know who we forgot? Inglewood Stoners and the Inglewood Skaters.
Yeah. Those was the only people smoking weed. That's how I know that all this weed smoking was influenced by the Chronic. You know what I'm saying? The album, like Dr. Dre's album. Because before that, only the Stoners would be way deep in that football field cut. You know what I'm saying? Smoking.
Way in the back of the school, smoking some gas. Yep.
So where was Answer from? What was their graffiti crew? Because Answer and Circle, they came before us. Sean
was really neutral, but he hung with RJ, and that was Ice Cold Artists, IKA. They had like their little crew, but they were down. They were down with a few people. They weren't really like sold on. And then Poet, his name is George. Poet was George. He actually is still around too.
Yeah, he got that bicycle shop.
He's
on
a
the
neighbor of mine. He lives a couple streets over, and his tag was pretty clean too. Dang, it's a lot of people. What else?
Well, the neighborhoods that I remember, I can do the gang side while you piece together this history you said you had all together. So
I named everybody, but I'm trying to get more stuff that we're forgetting about, and there's more popping up as we're going. That's the great thing about this conversation.
So we got Inglewood family.
Yeah.
Queen Street.
Yep.
I remember it was at least one Bloodstone villain, BSV.
Yeah.
And there you have it. I'm joking. CPS. And then I remember in Crozier there was a Crenshaw Mafia cat that was there.
Yeah, and then the other dudes that caught the bus to our school, they was from Bebop Watt.
Oh, okay. What is that?
Yeah.
What is that? Blood Gang or?
Yeah, it's Blood. And then another dude was from a brother. He passed away. He actually was him and his brother went to school with us. They were from Denver Lane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Denver Lane. And I think there was one dude from Bounty Hunters there too. I just can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I can't remember because a few of those guys went on to do the Banging on Wax CD and as well as some other what they call gangster rap or whatever.
And then there was like some undercover Crips, come to find out later.
The legends. It was
the
some
whole
legends that was there. Yeah, a couple of legends. And it was crazy because I remember we're in the 9th grade, like we were in school and like the Bloods was actually coming around to the classes, seeing who was in there. And it was this one dude that was like a Crip, and they was like, man, you got to check out. Like they told him he had to check out of school. And it was just like, what? Like, what's going on? And then, but sure enough, he checked out.
Yeah, that sounds wise. Yeah. Hey, I don't remember the Bloods being that invasive. That is tragic. Like, you know what I'm saying? They talking about your cruise. You got to join us. Like that sound like a movie. Like I hate to be the one that said that.
So that we were at Crozier when it happened, man. I remember that too because it was some guys that I went to elementary school with that were 1 year older than me. So we were in the 7th, they were in the 8th, and they was from Big Time Hustlers, and then they ended up being from CPF. All their older brothers was from that, and I think they were just doing the crew kind of thing to avoid that actual gang lifestyle, but it was just like, no, come on, all the way or nothing,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts, man.
And what about the Center Park situation, or that all graduated with the 80s classes? There was no Center Parks that you remember?
That was more Morningside.
Oh, I see.
Because I think Center Park would have turned into Woodworth Elementary, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And then the crews over at Morningside, I know a few was like the Weirdos, the Dime Block Hookers. The Center Parks were there, the Crenshaw Mafias were there. Can't remember all of them though, because it was just like rival high school, and as many years as I'm from Inglewood and this and that, like it was a certain time you didn't go on the bottom.
Yeah, that wasn't even considered Inglewood.
Yeah, it was just like I'm cool. It felt like you were going to the east side. Like, nah, we don't go over there. Like,
yeah, that's what I was talking with somebody recently about. I was like, yo, where does Inglewood actually stop? It's supposed to be like Imperial or something, but we kind of cut it off right there. Like,
yeah, like this was back in the day when Zodi's was on Century.
Yeah,
and the Century Drive-In. That was it.
Yeah.
But no, it's even funny just to see the change over there. And when they put the bottoms in Boys in the Hood, it's John Singleton, because that's I guess the area he grew up in, and then he transitioned over into South Central. That was the story of his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a Inglewood moment, like, oh, when the little kid called him like a African booty scratch or something, and the dude was like, I'm not from Africa, I'm from Crenshaw Mafia. And then they start fighting. They start fighting in the movie, and it was just like, oh man, like the name of the gang made it to the big screen.
Oh yeah,
trip. Yeah, the trip, man. That dude, like that lifestyle of his mom living in a blood neighborhood and his dad living in a Crip neighborhood. Just imagine what went on in his real life.
Yeah, that is wild, because that's kind of the neighborhood you repped, was the neighborhood you grew up with, or in.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of cats had those double affiliations too, because you do spend summers with your grandmother. Like, you know what I'm saying? And if she living in the neighborhood, you can be playing outside, and they just may happen to be,
As a matter of fact, my friend's older brother is from Inglewood, and he would go stay in Compton with grandma in the summertime. So he was IF and as well as Compton gang. You know, it was like a double thing.
Oh, then the neighborhood Pyrus?
Yeah, and HPs, yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, did they go to school with us or not? See, I'm getting confused with who went to school with us and who hung at Rogers Park too, because there was some black T-stones too, but I think they were just at the park. Yeah, no. BSV, yeah, no, I can't remember anybody at Inglewood that was at. Oh, Athens Park too. It was Athens Park at school with us too.
Damn.
And that was a gang in Compton.
This is really sounding like Dangerous Minds, man. Like I don't even remember it like that. That's what's so crazy, that all these crews and even these neighborhoods, the gang banging side of it, it didn't affect you unless you wanted to like, or let me change that. It didn't affect me because I don't remember this going around saying you got to join up, woo woo. But the idea that that all this influence, all these what can be considered negative options, right? Obviously, gangbangers are criminal organizations. You know what I'm saying? That they were there. Like, if you wanted to participate, that was an option. Just like if you wanted to play football or baseball. You know what I'm saying? That's very interesting. Like, it was a staple. Yeah. Like, because they stood out because of their outfits. They always was killer. You know.
Super clean.
And then obviously. And then the dope dealing side of it, was always sexy, because you getting picked up with somebody in a lowrider. That's always gonna be like, damn, like, you know what I'm saying. So, but the idea that it was all of these social groupings, and then within that, was gangbangers who, again, from my memory, they didn't. It was like they was on that bench. And they may make a joke or something, or not, or you can just walk the long way. Like, you know what I'm saying? You didn't necessarily have to participate in that sense,
Right. Well, and then also is because we knew the older guys.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to speak selectively, because I think that was like a privilege that I had.
I know, as well as me too. I was the youngest guy in my neighborhood, but I knew all of the people that were Inglewood from class of 84 all the way to when I got there, when everybody left. So the guys that was on my street, my neighborhood, they're like, oh yeah, that's like his little brother. Like, yeah, he's cool. Like, yeah, it was. We kind of knew everybody, but someone coming in from the outside.
Yeah, that sounds like a difficult campus to navigate. That's what I'm listening and like.
And you know what is so. What's so crazy about it is normal and natural to us because we grew up in it. But if we were talking to somebody, let's just say, I don't know,
the
like
Midwest,
a suburban neighborhood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They would look at us like, oh my God, you went through that. You know someone that was killed. You seen someone get shot. Like they would like want to rush us to counseling, and we just think it's normal.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too.
That's a part of the mental state and the shit that we went through growing up in the inner city and in the quote unquote hood and all this stuff, man. It's just like you see a friend that you went from elementary school all the way up until 11th grade get shot by somebody else, and
your natural instinct is anger and you want to do something, but then you got to understand that that's what that man signed up for when he joined the game.
Mm.
And that's how innocent bystanders get involved in stuff. Like when we used to go to Magic Mountain, like after the prom and all that stuff, and then you get your friends from school, and then you got another rival high school, and they start fighting, and you're there with your friends. You kind of just get bunched in, and it's like, what do you do? It's a trip, man. It's a tough road to navigate when you're not very careful. It's easier to get sucked in than to just stay out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough one, man.
So I remember when Queen Streets, this is before us getting there, they used to battle a breakdancing crew, but I don't know if that crew was at Inglewood. The Island City Breakers, like that's some mid '80s. I gotta throw at you. So I don't know if they had a place in the actual school, but that's who they used to battle, the dance crews. And the dance crews, what was Fat's dance crew? It was on that video you sent me. I just can't remember it. But they was actually like, that would be under the dance crews too, because they was modsters.
Pop lockers.
Yeah, pop lockers and monsters. So that's right before breakdancing took over, and then right after. Now I think the evolution would be housing. That's that dancing we was doing right after breaking. But what other crews can you think of? Because I don't want to hear the once we hang up.
No, as far as Inglewood, I think we covered most of what was at Inglewood as far as like, because sex jerks were dancers, posers were dancers. There was a lot of people that were dancers that converted into what it was. Like our era was the beginning of the violent side or the physical side of the cruise. Because before I remember Queen Street's breakdancing and all that stuff. Now I don't know if they were considered a dancing crew or they were bloods that just dance. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know either. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. But it's a trip because it's like a lot of crews started out that way, and then it just was like full blown, like overnight. It was.
And they were serious. It wasn't on lightweight.
Yeah, definitely serious, because I think like before, and this is just what I was told. Of course, I'm not that old to remember. I remember the guys, but I don't remember like it was Hyde Park Boys. It was like 4 or 5 cats. They were Hyde Park Boys, and then that was it. And then it just kind of went from there. And then the whole Pyru thing and all that different stuff. It was just like, it was a trip, because I remember it in my neighborhood. It was just like they played the streets over in football. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, they're not friends no more, because they went to Crenshaw, they went to Inglewood, they became Bloods, they became Crips. It was just like, kind of like an overnight thing. It was just like, what just happened?
That's so suspicious. You know what I'm saying? That is so suspicious. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, like, dude, like literally where I live, I'm 2 streets over from what's considered 60s neighborhood. 2 streets. I can stand at the corner of my street and see, quote unquote, a rival gang for the gang's area. Like, go to the same grocery store, parents know each other, all kind of stuff. It's just like, I don't know. It's a tricky one. There's got to be some method to the madness of somebody having their hand in there to for the old school divide and conquer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like,